All right, that was awesome. So now it's my turn. I was jumping to it a little early before, probably because I just wanted to get it done. But my name is Joel again. I'm an alcoholic.
Joel!
It's really good to be here tonight. I have the luxury of walking into a meeting that I've never had been to and knowing a bunch of the guys in here from that retreat. And know them in a way that's deeper than just, passing through on a meeting. So thanks for making me feel so welcome here. My story has a mix of a lot of stuff. It has alcohol, drugs, hard drugs, pills, a lot of stuff in it. So I grew up in Long Beach. And my, a suburban, household. I had a sister, and there was a lot of chaos in the house when I was young. My sister got pretty ill when she was around maybe 12 or so, and I couldn't really figure out what it was. Then she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when she was 13. So that. That meant she had to take an insulin injection every day. And my dad also did the same thing. There had been, before that, there had been some trauma in the family because my grandmother, who owned a dry cleaning store at Cahuenga in Franklin, right over by the Hollywood Bowl, they had moved out here and they lived in an apartment up behind the cleaners. My great uncle was pistol whipped in the cleaning store. My grandmother came down and saw that when she came into the cleaning store through this back entrance there was, that saw him laying there and she had a heart attack and died, which was very traumatic for the entire family. And then I had a little brother who at 2 days died. So there was all this stuff in the house, and I felt different already. I was littler than any of the other kids around, and so the first time I got drunk, and really, the first time was I was a character at Disneyland, and I played in 1967 when the movie Jungle Book came out. I was Mowgli the Jungle Boy, running around in a loincloth and body tights and anyway, my parents trusted the other characters were all older, and they had this beach party in Laguna, and my parents said, "Yeah, you can go with Grumpy and the Little Pigs and all those folks," and they gave me rum and coke, and I just powered it down. I was 13 or 14 at the time, in between. And my parents had to come pick me up. I threw up all over the place. It was crazy. And that's sort of how I used was drank, especially was binge like that, blackout. And what I did find was probably when I was 14 or 15, found my mom's stash of pills. Back in those days, homemakers had a lot of different prescriptions. She had codeine, diet pills, Ritalin, and I found those, and it made me feel good. It was the only thing that made me feel comfortable in the house with everything that was going on. I could be completely independent. I didn't need anybody else. I could go, the pills for me, they didn't screw me up, so I could still do other stuff. And so anything I could do to get out of the house, skateboarded all the time, learned to juggle, ride a unicycle, all this stuff to try to fill inside. And so that's the only way I ever felt good. And that continued on through high school. I'd drink more than anybody else. But I also had this side thing, being able to take pills to really make myself just comfortable inside. Whatever hole there was, whatever I was trying to patch over, it worked. And so I would, I'd take amphetamines. I did pretty well in high school, bounced around in college, and then finally discovered, my kind of career calling, which was journalism, and became a reporter and editor, and did that, continued to do that for many years. And I was just able to focus on my work. That was the thing. Again, I was just always trying to fill this, feeling that I never felt good. Unless I was using something, I never felt good. And that didn't mean I had to always get, completely obliterated. It just meant I needed something outside myself. And work became that for me. And that began for me living a complete shameful double life. I was in constant fear of discovery from my bosses for what I was doing out there. I discovered crack cocaine, which was readily available in the MacArthur Park area at the time, and I was, I was buying crack from 18th Street gang members, and and it was, I had 2 small children at home and my wife, and I was just constantly playing with fire. It was that insanity, and I would, after work, we had a watering hole, and then everybody would go there, and then I would do my thing after that. And I just kept that inside me. Trying to look good on the outside, kind of excelling at work, but constantly fearful that I was going to be discovered, hanging out in homeless encampments and drinking Thunderbird and Cisco, and just wearing a suit, and just the craziness that many of us have experienced. Eventually, my wife, who was equally, she was terrorized by my activity, because it wasn't just that I was using like that, it was that I was placing myself in danger all the time, every time I was at that park. So she threatened to leave. She was halfway out the door, and I said, I'll get help, and I was in total denial. I knew, I hated myself, and I hated what I was doing. And when I'd be driving on the freeway, I'd say, please don't let me make that turn onto Alvarado. I don't want to get off of Alvarado. And, but none of that ever worked. So so I ended up, I did, it never occurred to me. I knew that I didn't like this behavior I was having, but it never, as crazy as it was, complete denial, it never occurred to me that I was an alcoholic or a drug addict. It never occurred to me. After growing up, taking pills constantly, it just never hit me. And so I went to, I came in through Cocaine Anonymous, and that first meeting I went to was in Glendale. And when I walked in there, I loved it from the minute I walked in. And I know that's not everybody's story, but I was I was filled with so much fear and self-loathing that it was so welcoming, the room. And I saw that there were a lot of people, a lot of different kinds of people laughing and trying to get better, and I was turned on by it. Then I met somebody there at that meeting. They said, I think you should go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting with me, which we did. And then my feeling was much different, because then all of a sudden I really had to realize that I was an alcoholic. That's what preceded everything. I never did any drugs without, hard drugs, without drinking first, ever. And so I remember a guy came up there, and he took a cake for 30 years. This was my second meeting. It was an AA meeting. And I was just like, what the hell? Oh my God, what have I got myself into? 30 years I'm going to have to do this? And I remember, as though it was as though it was yesterday. I remember going home and just sobbing with my wife, just like, oh my God, you know, what have I done to myself? That's how I viewed it at the time. Look what I've done to myself. And now I'm stuck with this for all these years, and everybody's clapping, and I'm like, okay. I like I said, I liked it, but I had that keep coming back theme was big for me because I kept taking it back. I would have that, I would surrender, and do the first step, admit powerlessness, and then because a lot of my heavier like drinking and drug activity was binge related, I would take it back, and I had become an expert at, for all those years of concealing behaviors, of leading that hidden life, and that includes in my early 20s and later, you know, massage parlors, strip clubs, all that stuff, whatever addiction there was, I would go for it. So I would relapse. I'd get 30, 60, 90, and then would keep coming back. But you know, I finally I had an instant where I relapsed. My wife is kind of like an adventure travel writer, and so she would be out of the country a lot, and so it was always a challenge for me when she was out of the country because I was not working. I was going to meetings, but I wasn't working steps. I was there. That's about, I was there, and that was good enough to keep me there, you know? If I wasn't there at all, then I wouldn't keep coming back. I wouldn't be here tonight, frankly. So I managed to string together I had a relapse in 2007, I think it was 2007, anyway, it was, and I came out of a blackout in the passenger seat of my car, and somebody else was driving it, and we were at Skid Row. And so
here we go again.
And so that scared me. And I was able to string together 12 years. And during that time, I'd like to say I got a new sponsor. We worked the steps, which was good. I stayed in touch. There was some stuff going on in our house that was with our son who was using, and so there was a lot of stuff, and I got through all that. Oh boy! And so anyway, so I'm going to fast forward here because I've got 2 minutes left to really where I am right now, and that is 5 years, 4 months ago, I had a one-night relapse, and I just, again, my wife was out of the country, and I blew it out. I stopped and got a couple of little bottles of vodka, drank those, and then was no drugs that night, but just drank to a level that I never had before in that short period of time, less than 24 hours. I've never felt that level of craving and desperation, and that is that what I kept hearing about was that progressive nature of the disease. And so I also, after having that 12 years in which I was not in the middle of the pack anymore, I wasn't doing these steps, I was just showing up, I decided that I was going to take that to the grave with me, that I could never go to a meeting and tell any of my pals that I relapsed like that. And I kept that to myself. I kept that to myself for 4 months, and I continued to go to meetings, and it was brutal. It was every single time the issue of rigorous honesty was mentioned. It was like, oh Jesus, I can't take this anymore. And I had a panel. I still have a panel, and that panel, I was I wasn't sharing that there, I wasn't sharing it anywhere, until it was either I'm either in or I'm out. I can't keep going to meetings like this and be miserable every time I walk out, more miserable than when I walked in. And again, I had that fallback position of leading that secret life. I felt like I could pull it off, but I couldn't pull it off anymore. So I came clean on my confessional tour of my meetings, raising my hand, sharing, was lovingly received by my fellows, and it was, and it gave me an opportunity to really figure out what happened. And I, I wasn't confronting some issues. I retired from this job I'd had for about 10 years, and I was like that thing in the book, the guy retires, he starts drinking and mixing stuff with milk or something. Is that how that story goes? And I was kind of like that guy, I was sort of lost. But in the past 5+ years, I will tell you that my sobriety, the quality of that 5 years, this 5 years, is better than it's ever been, because I'm engaged. I'm willing to do whatever it takes now, and that might mean that I sponsor. I go to more meetings. I share when I don't want to. When I'm asked to do anything, my first response is yes. My second response is, oh shit, why did I say yes? But it's always instinctively yes. And the retreat was me again, willing to do something different, willing to widen my circle, even though I didn't know anybody, like a handful of people or less than that. And it was one of the high points of my sobriety. So I'm really grateful for that. And there was one exercise, one meeting, the gratitude meeting at that retreat. And it's at night, and it was really amazing. And everybody goes around. Those of you who I know a bunch of you have been to the retreat, but I'll just say, and as it was going around where people were expressing their gratitude, I was like, okay, there's a lot of great sharing going on here. Don't let me look stupid. That's where my head was. It was like, oh, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? And then as soon as, and then I just prayed, I said, God, help me? What am I grateful for? And what came into my head was just instantly, I am immensely grateful to be alive today. Just to be alive, because I've been able to see everything just unfold in front of me. My family, we're doing a trip in January to Costa Rica, and I mean, we're a very tight family, and I've been able to just enjoy the beauty. I'm 71, and I'm running marathons, and so there's a lot of stuff that I've been able to experience, and I'm telling you, without this program, none of that would have happened. None of it, because I was headed, in the opposite direction, where drug dealers were telling me, slow down, man, you're gonna kill yourself. So, anyway, thanks so much for having me here tonight. And